In the early 2000s, I don't think you can really underestimate just how big Yu-Gi-Oh! Was. It arguably rivaled Pokemon in terms of popularity. And as it was airing on Kids WB at the time, it was arguably their flagship show. Of course, the subsequent anime boom did cause Kids WB to kill their own American-made cartoons because they figured, why make our own cartoons when we can import them from Japan for cheap? But that's another story. To this day, there's countless sequel series. GX, 5D, Zexal, and Reigns, which I have not fully seen. I don't think I will be covering those series anytime soon, but we're still focusing on the original manga. From here on out, we are focusing much more on the card game, as that was what got the reader's interest. I suppose a big part of it had to do with Takahashi's incredible designs for some of the monsters. Dark Magician, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Exodia, they all look cool to this day. So with the interest still rising, Takahashi decided to have an entire arc be dedicated to duel monsters. The card game pretty much becomes the sole interest in this entire universe. Takahashi didn't mind, as he admitted coming up with a new game every week was getting more challenging. Now bear in mind the card game wasn't actually out yet. I can't find what year Duelist Kingdom was published, but I assume it was around 1998 or 1999. Meaning the rules of how the game is played here may differ from how you know it in real life, and we'll probably cover a little bit of that. With that said, let's get the show on the road. Welcome to Duelist Kingdom. We open with Yugi and his friends playing duel monsters in school. Jinochi is so poor at dueling that he can't even beat Anzu. And if you play Duel Links on mobile, you'd probably have an idea for how bad Anzu's cards really are. Yugi points out to Jinochi that his entire deck is just monster cards, and without spell and trap cards there's no way he will win. Yugi asks his grandfather to train Jinochi. Shigorku agrees, but tells Yugi a package came for him. As they prepare to watch the tournament finals, Yugi says he only wants to duel Kaiba, who is still in a coma. But we also set up that Jinochi will not forgive Kaiba, and this becomes a key part of their animosity. From there, we turn our attention to the finals. It's between Insector Haga and Dinosaur Ryuzaki, Weevil Underwood and Rex Raptor in English. Both use specifically themed decks. Insects for Haga, Dinosaurs for Ryuzaki. Much to the surprise of Jinochi, Haga defeats Ryuzaki and is presented with a trophy by the creator of Duel Monsters, Maximilian Pegasus. Rare case for the Viz manga used the English name instead of his Japanese name, Pegasus Bader. I actually do think in this case the English name is an improvement. Who gives their kid the first name Pegasus? Pegasus tells Haga of a new tournament he has in store. Yugi decides to open the box where he finds a glove and tape. Turning the tape on, Pegasus greets Yugi. I'll clarify this if you don't know. Pegasus is explicitly stated to be American in the Japanese Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is why sometimes he will say phrases in plain English. Now this doesn't translate too well to actual English, but I was pleased they kept in Pegasus referring to Yugi and Kaiba as Yugi Boy and Kaiba Boy respectively. Pegasus challenges Yugi to a game who accepts, but Pegasus knows every move Yugi makes somehow and it turns into a shadow game. Dark Yugi promptly takes over, and we see Pegasus has something else where his left eye should be. The duel goes on. Pegasus knows Dark Yugi's every move. Nothing Yugi does can counter Pegasus. Pegasus' real goal is he wants Yugi to compete in Duelist Kingdom, and if he loses, well, he has to. Dark Yugi refuses to give up, even thinking Pegasus put subliminal messages into the video. Not sure how that could conceivably work, but, well, I guess it's a good try. But that's not what it is. Pegasus has been scanning Yugi's mind with his Millennium Eye the entire time, so he knows every move he'll make. The timer runs out before Yugi can make his comeback, and as a penalty game, Pegasus seals Yugi's grandfather's soul inside the videotape. The anime changes to sealing his soul inside a card, so now if Yugi wants to free his grandfather, he must go to Duelist Kingdom. The next day, Yugi meets with his friends. One key difference here from the anime is that Yugi is starting to understand how his other self feels. They haven't been able to make contact yet, but they're making steps to get there. Bakura still has the Millennium Ring. This is going to come back to bite them, isn't it? Dark Yugi stands alone on a rooftop. This is the first time he's ever lost a game, so he's feeling vulnerable. But regardless, he won't let this defeat define him. He will recover his grandfather's soul. Yugi receives the Duelist Kingdom invitation and where to go, while Jinochi receives a videotape of his own. It's not from Pegasus, but from his younger sister Shizuka. Serenity, in English. Still waiting for her to be put in Duel Links Kunami, who, when their parents got divorced, she went to live with their mother, while Jinochi was stuck with their father. As it turns out, she's going blind, unless she gets a very advanced and expensive surgery. Jinochi hasn't seen her for nearly 6 years, but despite this, he still feels dedicated to protecting her. Dark Yugi gives Jinochi a star chip as they both have something to compete for. Yugi for his grandfather, Jinochi for his sister. Yugi and his friends arrive at Domino Pier to board the ship for Duelist Kingdom. Haga and Ryuzaki are there, as well as this duelist named Mai, who charms the boys, but Anzo immediately takes a disliking to her. Catfighting coming. Mai shows some rather shady tactics as she tricks Ryuzaki into giving up his luxury room to her. Haga appears to be a rather decent guy until Yugi lets him see his Exodia cards, which Haga then throws off the ship. There's only one clip that's appropriate with this. Now, the reason for this is because obviously there would be no tension in any of the duels if Yugi always had Exodia to rely on to automatically win. He'll have to earn his victories the old-fashioned way from now on. All Haga does with this is ensure Yugi's wrapped, as he will go after him first. The next morning they arrive where Duelist Kingdom will take place. Duelist Kingdom is using its own custom rules, which, like I said, there were no actual rules for the game in real life at the time. Each duel starts with 2,000 life points. You can't direct attack your opponent. To enter the finals, you must achieve 10 star chips, which means Yugi and Jinochi are doing at a disadvantage, as they only have 1 star chip each. In 48 hours, the tournament will be over. If you lose all your star chips, you are eliminated. Dark Yugi challenges Haga first. A little difference from the anime is that they duel in battle boxes rather than duel rings. Yugi makes up for the difference for only 1 star chip to wager by betting his life as well. Duelist Kingdom will have field advantages for the monsters. In the real-life game, this would be a field spell. I do love early duel monsters when you can just summon any level monster by normal summoning. We do get to see some of Yugi's traditional combos. Dark Magician with Mirror Force. Mirror Force is still a good card today. Through methods that would not work in the actual game and really awesome art, Yugi defeats Haga and now has 3 star chips, and Jinochi gets the Dueling Glove. Yay! Next up is Jinochi versus Mai. Mai is pretty well above Jinochi as a duelist, but Jinochi doesn't back down because he doesn't want to be a coward. Mai's reason for competing in the tournament is pretty shallow. She just wants to be rich. At first it looks bad for Jinochi as Mai knows her cards without even looking at them, but through Yugi's advice, Jinochi is able to figure out that her cards are covered in perfume, which is how she can see them. Jinochi is able to defeat Mai because, unlike her, he has something worth fighting for, his sister and a little bit of luck. 4 hours have passed in Duelist Kingdom. Yugi has 3 star chips, Jinochi has 2. The next duel has Yugi face Ryoko Kajuki. How do you say that? Mako Tsunami in English, who uses a water fiendette and is really in touch with the ocean, perhaps a bit too much so. Ryoto puts up a fight, but Yugi is able to win by destroying the moon. You know, if more mangas had their characters blow up the moon, they would solve all their problems. Guess Sailor Moon would be screwed, though. After that, a thief is going around stealing star chips. We get a bit of character insight to Pegasus. He is shown reading comic books about a cartoon rabbit. There's a reason why he does this, but I'll get into it at the end. Dark Yugi duels the thief, who is revealed to be Mokuba. Mokuba is mad at Yugi because Kaiba has still not come out of his coma. A sharp change from pretending to commit suicide in the anime. Mokuba reveals Pegasus wants to beat Yugi so he can take control of Kaiba Corporation. With Kaiba in a coma, Pegasus tried to buy the company from the Big Five. Minor villains here, but are the focus of an anime filler arc. Basically, they'll let Pegasus take over, provided that he defeats Yugi in a duel. But why does Pegasus want Yugi and Kaiba Corporation specifically? We don't know yet. Yugi asks Mokuba to just trust in him defeating Pegasus, but before he can give him back his star chips, this guy, forget his name, takes Mokuba hostage, and forces Yugi to duel Ventriloquist with a Kaiba puppet. On a side note, this is very different from how the anime did this. The Japanese version said it was Kaiba's ghost come back from the dead, while 4Kids said it was his evil half brought back from the Shadow Realm. Odd either way. But when the Ventriloquist plays the Blue Eyes White Dragon, Yugi is able to buy time with magical hats, a favorite combo of his. But Yugi is about to lose to the Blue Eyes, but it stops suddenly. At that moment, Kaiba has awakened from his coma. Similarly to how Kaiba couldn't summon Yugi's grandfather's Blue Eyes, this Blue Eyes stops working for the imposter Kaiba. Dark Yugi traps him in a rather cruel penalty, but he was that pissed off because he respects Kaiba as a rival. Yugi now has 6 star chips, but Mokuba has been taken to Pegasus Castle because he holds a key that's needed to obtain some Kaiba Court documents. Meanwhile, Kaiba, in a show that he has changed, begins to make his way to Pegasus Island to rescue his brother. Meanwhile, Maya's been making short work of minor duelists who we don't care about, but she's not satisfied. Losing to Jinochi was too big of a blow to her ego, and her words, something you can show but can't see, haunt her. But Ryuzaki shows up, and Maya convinces him that if he defeats Jinochi, she will duel him. Jinochi agrees to the conditions and will duel with no help from his friends. Dark Yugi agrees and lets Yugi take control again. Jinochi's friends are much more supportive of him than they were in the anime, I'll tell you that. Jinochi isn't doing so well, but Dark Yugi tells Yugi that Jinochi has to do this himself, and they should respect that. So the two Yugis are starting to connect to each other. Jinochi starts to make a comeback, but Ryuzaki plays his most powerful card, the Red Eyes Black Dragon. Ryuzaki decides to make a wager. If he wins, he'll get Jinochi's Time Wizard, and if Jinochi wins, he will get Red Eyes. Which only serves to remind Jinochi that he has Time Wizard still in the field. Whoops. Jinochi is able to once again win with the Time Wizard and gets the Red Eyes Black Dragon out of it too. Not a bad deal for a beginner. Night falls and Yugi and his friends rest. Pegasus didn't think to provide anyone with food and water, so everybody's on their own. I'm pretty sure that's grounds to sue unless Pegasus mentioned that as a condition. Mai arrives and starts showing a more compassionate side as she allows the gang some food and lets Anzu take a shower. We start getting a little bit of insight into Mai's backstory. Anzu and Mai start to bond a little bit as Mai tells her what she used to do before becoming a duelist. We get some quiet moments that are quickly broken up by the player killer challenging Mai to a duel. Anzu meets Yugi, and we get some more development of the love triangle. Anzu decides that it doesn't matter which Yugi she's talking to. Yugi is Yugi. But before they can connect, Mai's scream is heard. The player killer has eliminated Mai, but Dark Yugi emerges and tells Mai that he will get her star chits back. The player's job is to eliminate players on the island, so there's only 4 finalists. Yugi is priority number 1 because defeating Yugi will grant Pegasus control of Kaiba Corp as previously stated. Yugi bets his life to make up for the difference in star chips, and the player killer holds him to this by putting a wire around his neck that will choke Yugi to death. Oh, wow. Is that more or less violent than trying to incinerate him with fire like in the anime? I will say the art in this duel is really cool as the player killer is shrouded in shadow. The way Yugi wins by using Catapult Turtle to launch Gaia the Fierce Knight into the Castle of Illusions, which causes it to collapse on all his monsters, destroying them. Yeah, let's be real. Even back then, before there was an actual card game, you definitely couldn't do that. Yugi does his last penalty game in the series by making the player killer think he's hanging. Yikes. There is a reason why Dark Yugi stops giving penalty games, and we'll cover that at the end. Mai has gotten her starships back, and now she owes Yugi a debt that will come into play later. Meanwhile, Kaiba heads to Duelist Kingdom and remarks that he wants to battle Yugi again. But his bodyguards are traitors. And I mention this because Kaiba stopping a gun with just a card is ridiculous and awesome at the same time. While Yugi may have destroyed his darker thoughts, Kaiba hasn't lost his edge. Later that night, Kaiba lands on Duelist Kingdom, and Yugi greets him warmly despite that the last time he saw them, he was trying to kill all of them in Death Tea. Kaiba does thank Yugi for returning his deck, but vows that they will duel again. Jinochi, however, isn't so forgiving, challenging Kaiba to a duel right there. Kaiba looks down Jinochi as a lowly commoner, but decides now's a good time to test out his dual disc system, a prototype of the more iconic version seen in Battle City. Kaiba rather effortlessly destroys Jinochi, who only makes a dent with Red Eyes. Kaiba is still a huge jerk despite the mind crush, but curiously, Jinochi doesn't want Kaiba to know he's fighting for his sister's eyes. After all, scum like Kaiba don't understand what it's like to fight for someone other than himself, right? Kaiba does tell Yugi that he has seen Pegasus duel. He rather easily defeated the American champion Bandit Keith. Just wrote down every tactic he would make and just told a kid to play the right card, completely humiliating him. Kaiba's plan is to use the duel disc to get an edge over Pegasus, but Dark Yugi emerges and warns Kaiba that they too have a reason to duel Pegasus, and that he will be the one to defeat him. Kaiba invades Pegasus' palace and finds that he can't access it without having 10 star chips. Meanwhile, Jinochi is haunted by his loss to Kaiba. The morning comes and the group is ready to start the second day of Duelist Kingdom. Unaware they're being spied on by Bandit Keith's goons, who just want revenge on Pegasus. Kidnapping Jinochi, they force him to duel Ghost Kazuka. Bones in English. For Jinochi, this is a redemption duel for losing so badly to Kaiba. For once, his trump cards fails, which shows that Jinochi is a Gambor duelist, which in real life isn't very viable. Jinochi is down to his last card, but with the shield and sword card, Jinochi is able to win all by himself, which is a great moral victory for him. But Bandit Keith shows how much of a snake he is by trapping the gang in the caves and beating up his goons and taking their star chips for himself despite not officially being part of the tournament. Yugi and the gang meet the Mikio brothers, who in addition to a duel ring have a maze. So Yugi and Jinochi will tag team against them, and if they win, they will have 10 star chips, but they will also have to solve the door riddle because it's never simple. It's cool to see Yugi and Jinochi work together, even if the methods they use would never work in the real game. Eventually they emerge victorious. Black Skull Dragon is a really cool looking card, But as our friends search for a way out, the Dark Spirit in the Millennium Ring reaches out to Bakura. If he wants to save his friends, he'll put the ring back on. And he does so, setting forth a chain of events that will last to the end of the series. As Yugi and friends are able to escape the cave, 10 Starships in hand, they will go to Pegasus Castle. Meanwhile, Kaiba has been holding a hostage by putting his head in a briefcase. That's pretty inventive, actually. Pegasus says he will allow Kaiba a chance to rescue his brother, and essentially the last piece of his heart, provided that he defeats Yugi in a duel. With no choice, Kaiba agrees. As Yugi and the others arrive at the castle, they find Kaiba waiting for them. Kaiba does promote Jinochi from a loser to a deadbeat. I guess that's a step up in Kaiba's world. Yugi and Kaiba will duel at the top of the castle, which makes for good scenery. Yugi and Kaiba duel once again, and the two admit they are enjoying the thrill of battling each other once again. Also, Viz, you clearly screwed up on the text here. It says Jinochi for life points when it's supposed to be Yugi. Kaiba's plan is to merge all 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons together because that's a new card now. Kaiba is able to crush Yugi's deck with a virus that prevents him from summoning monsters with over 1500 attack points. Yugi has to play defensively as Kaiba fuses his 3 Blue Eyes into the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Yugi is able to stall for time by multiplying Karibo. I don't think that's how it works in the real game, and through other means that would not work. He is able to poison Kaiba's Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon? What? Kaiba realizes that even though he has something he's fighting for, he's still going to lose. Yugi is able to bring Kaiba down to the last of his life points, but Kaiba decides to take a drastic measure. For the 500 life points he lost, he takes 5 steps back, and if Yugi attacks again, he will jump off. Kaiba tells Yugi, "Do it, prove your worth."
Dude, don't you think you're overreacting a little? I mean, it's just a card game. Card games are serious business.
Dark Yugi starts to go through with it, but Yugi emerges and stops the attack, which also doesn't work as when you call attack, you can't take it back. But Kaiba does win the duel, and the Starships. Yugi lost the game. Well, I don't know who rightfully won this game since they both cheated by real-life standards. Yugi is scared. He almost killed Kaiba, so he's scared of the game, and of his other self. Kaiba rationalizes that all games are conflict. God gave us all a chip of life to play games with. Yugi lost by not having the desire to finish the duel. But Anzu responds that no, Kaiba's the one who truly lost. By being willing to sacrifice himself for the loss, he was willing to throw away the most valuable chip of all, his life. Compared to the anime, Yugi quickly gets back up on his feet because giving up is not in his dictionary. Fortunately, Yugi is saved by Mai's debt to him as she got some extra star chips for Yugi, thus allowing him to participate. Nice way to pay that off. Yugi at first refuses, he's not worthy of it, but Jinochi tells Yugi that while his other self is a great duelist, his own thoughts and feelings matter as well. Yugi comes to his senses and agrees with that. As the finalists enter the castle, they find Kaiba ready to duel Pegasus. Kaiba is actually glad to see Yugi has made it into the palace, showing that he respects him some more. For Kaiba and Pegasus' duel, what this really shows well is just how Pegasus is able to break Kaiba down. First, he breaks his spirit by showing him Mokuba as an empty shell, which causes Kaiba to forgo using his dual disc system. Then Pegasus plays like an amateur, luring Kaiba into a false sense of security before showing that he knows every move Kaiba will make and is prepared for every single one of them. He takes Kaiba's treasured Blue Eyes White Dragon from him, completely destroys his virus combo, then plays Toon World, which is not nearly as broken in real life, and completely decimates Kaiba's monsters. Kaiba is able to adapt by throwing down his cards from his hand. Kaiba just relies on his draw, and he's able to fight back with another Blue Eyes White Dragon, even destroying the Toon Dragon. But Pegasus then uses that same love to destroy all of Kaiba's monsters and leave him with only a weak monster. Kaiba, in this moment, he reflects he's failed to save his brother, and even says goodbye to Yugi. Pegasus entraps Kaiba's soul in a card. Now the Kaiba brothers are doomed to be separated for all eternity. But Yugi won't have it. Dark Yugi emerges and tells Pegasus he will make him pay for this. In order to be able to duel Pegasus, you must have the left and right hand of the kings. Dark Yugi realizes the reason the left hand is blank is because Pegasus intends to trap whoever he defeats in the card. This is why he gives Jinochi the right hand, to protect him. They don't really spell that out in the anime for some reason, or at least they don't in the English version. And in the manga, Yugi and Anzu recognize Shadi. They obviously don't in the anime because they haven't met him yet. But there's also an unknown woman next to Shadi. Yugi and Bakura take the time to notice the connection between the Millennium items, as now the puzzle, ring, and eye are on the same island. During dinner, Takahashi sets up Hondo wanting to rescue Mokuba because he owes Mokuba for saving his life at Death T. Jinochi snaps that the Kaiba brothers got what they deserved, but Hondo reminds him that what Kaiba did for Mokuba, he is doing for Shizuka. It's nice that Takahashi did set this up ahead of time compared to how in the anime he just kinda decided, yeah, I'm gonna do this, bye. As night falls, the duelist rests, but Honda prepares to invade the dungeons. All the while, under Shadi's portrait, Dark Bakura re-emerges. Thanks to Bakura's help, Honda is able to find Mokuba in the dungeon. Keith steals Jinochi's car, but Yugi spots him in the night. This whole section of Keith beating up Yugi and Jinochi coming to Yugi's rescue isn't in the anime at all, but it does give Jinochi an awesome moment when he beats the crap out of Keith. There's a good bit of character growth for Yugi here as he discusses how he's always being helped by everyone. Kinda odd the anime took this out. Honda is busted out of jail by Dark Bakura as dawn breaks for the tournament finals. Shigoroku tells Yugi that he believes Yugi keeps his other self's heart in balance, and this is something that's going to come into play soon. The finals begin. Our first duel is Yugi versus Mai. Mai absolutely destroys Yugi at first. This is because Dark Yugi is looking ahead to his duel with Pegasus, thus he's not giving Mai his full attention. In the dub, this is changed to Yugi trying to keep Yami Yugi in check, despite the fact that it is clearly Yami Yugi who is dueling, so it made no sense. Mai is able to get Yugi down to 300 life points, but what's really going on here is that the two Yugis are able to realize they are both strong where the other is weak, and now the two of them will work together. With renewed vigor, Yugi begins to turn the duel around. Through the power of, as Jan Green would put it, the pull it out of my butt card, Dark Yugi is able to eventually ritual summon the Blackluster Soldier, which completely breaks Mai's spirits and causes her to surrender, as she now has no way to win. Yugi thanks her though, as because of her, he's remembered what he's fighting for. Bandit Keith almost disqualifies Jinochi because he stole his card. Come to think of it, Honda and Bakura rescuing Mokuba happens entirely off screen in the manga. That's because you have to focus on the main attraction, which is the tournament. Thanks to Mai giving Jinochi her card, he's able to qualify on time, and thus the second match begins. The two are evenly matched for a while. Jinochi shows just how much he's grown as a duelist. Pegasus knows that Keith is motivated by despair and revenge, while Jinochi is motivated by hope and light. Which will win? Keith resorts to cheating by pulling out what cards he needs from his sleeves, yet despite that, Jinochi is able to win fair and square. Well, fair and square is a little iffy with Duelist Kingdom. Yugi and Jinochi both agree to not duel because they both want the same thing, and only Yugi has a real chance of defeating Pegasus. The anime does have them duel, probably because they had to sell more cards. You all remember Bandit Keith threatening Pegasus? It happens here, but not exactly as you remember it. Pegasus gives him a penalty game, and he is definitely dead here, no question about that. Dark Yugi reflects that he vowed to the Kaiba Brothers that they would be reunited, and he's going to make sure that it happens. Bakura and Honda meet up with the rest. Honda notes Bakura is acting weird, but decides to pay it no mind for now. Now, the stage is set for the final duel of Duelist Kingdom, Yugi versus Pegasus. Before they begin, Yugi makes Pegasus promise he will release all the souls he's captured, including Kaiba. Pegasus doesn't know why Yugi would help his enemy, but nonetheless he agrees to it. Pegasus has almost achieved his goal. All that's left now is to defeat Yugi. The beginning of the duel doesn't go too well for Yugi, as Pegasus just reads whatever he has planned and counters accordingly. Dark Yugi plays his last card, Dark Magician, and Magical Hats, but Pegasus knows where Dark Magician is hiding. But when he makes his move, Dark Magician isn't there. When Pegasus looks across the table, it's not Dark Yugi who is facing him, but regular Yugi who realizes that his other self needed help. The two Yugis meet and talk for the first time. Yugi reasons that if Pegasus can read Dark Yugi's mind, he can't read both of their minds. So for the first time, the two Yugis will work together, and it's a great moment. Working together, the two Yugis are able to dispel Toon World, and Pegasus has dealt serious damage. Pegasus manages to give us some very interesting tidbits. Duel monsters came from a game that was played in ancient Egypt. Interesting. Pegasus switches the game to a shadow game, which is too much for Yugi to handle. Being in a shadow game presses Yugi to his limit, but he still insists on drawing one more card to help his other self before finally collapsing. So now Dark Yugi is left to fight alone against Pegasus' relinquished monster. Dark Yugi emerges again, and he's not happy. Pegasus can now read Dark Yugi's mind again, but finds himself blocked by Yugi's friends because, power of friendship and all that? Yeah, sure, whatever. With the ritual card Yugi left, Dark Yugi summons the Magician of Black Chaos. Through a combo of Kuribo and Multiply, Dark Yugi is able to defeat Relinquished, and thus Pegasus, the creator of duel monsters, has been beaten at his own game. The two Yugis work together and were able to overcome this challenge. Pegasus keeps his word and releases the souls he's captured. Pegasus mentions that the power that comes from Millennium items is inherently evil. Dark Yugi demands to know how Pegasus got the Millennium Eye before he sends his soul to oblivion. Wow, he's going to annihilate him either way. Pegasus tells Yugi his story. The woman in the portrait is his love, Cynthia. They were going to spend their lives together, but tragedy broke and Cynthia died at the young age of 17. Pegasus traveled to Egypt, to maybe have some hope of reuniting with his love. Pegasus encountered Shadi, and he found himself in a tomb of Egypt, where the tomb of the pharaoh lies. Pegasus is chosen as worthy by the Millennium Eye, and for a brief moment he was reunited with his beloved Cynthia. Dark Yugi is left to ponder, what connection does he have to this pharaoh's tomb and the 7 Millennium Items? He also did not inflict a penalty game on Pegasus, as Anzu says if he had finished Pegasus, he would have accepted that he, Dark Yugi, was born of evil, and he will not be evil any longer. And now he's left to wonder, who am I? Where did I come from? Thus setting the stage for the next arc. The Kaiba brothers both awaken and the two reunite, finishing the last piece of Kaiba's heart. It is a surprisingly sweet moment. We went from Kaiba subjecting his own brother to the death penalty to warmly embracing him. Happy endings abound. The two Yugis are now talking to each other, but on that note, you remember how in the anime Pegasus shows up a few times after Duelist Kingdom as a reoccurring character? It doesn't quite go like that here. Oh, he's definitely dead. And Dark Bakura now possesses the Millennium Eye. Kaiba thanks Yugi for saving Mokuba, but admits he can't consider their last duel a true victory. This following section is something the anime glosses over. Yugi and friends are given a ride home on Kaiba's helicopter, and Kaiba's expression is just priceless. Man, I really wish they didn't take this out. With that, Duelist Kingdom comes to a close. Duelist Kingdom is a great arc. The manga is starting to center around the card game because that's what readers wanted to see. But Takahashi did a great job of tying the card game into the mythology he was building. Some rather interesting world building is dropped about Egypt and how Dark Yugi connects to it. The characters definitely get more development, and little teases are dropped to storylines to come. Yugi and Jinochi and even Kaiba have no goals in that they are fighting to save the ones they love, which makes us root for them. Dark Yugi and Yuki finally learn how to work together. Yugi gets most of his development in realizing that he can keep his other self honest. He starts to learn how to help his other self and not rely on Dark Yugi to always save the day. Dark Yugi, on the other hand, upon hearing Pegasus call the Millennium Items as evil, decides that, well, he will not be evil anymore. The anime never explained why he stopped doing penalty games. Well, here we have our explanation. Character development, simple as that. He's defeated the creator of Duel Monsters, but Yugi's not done yet. Dark Yugi must now confront who he is and where did he come from. Jinochi's growth is how he becomes a true duelist. He's got a ways to go and he's not there yet, and a lot of his victories are beginner's luck, but he has the heart of a winner. Pegasus even knows that Jinochi has been fueled by hope and trust, which is how he's gotten so far in the Duelist Kingdom tournament. Even Kaiba slightly acknowledges his growth. We also get some more insight into his family life. He has lived separate from his mother and sister, while he's had to stay with the alcoholic father. Yet despite that, he has remained a good kid at heart. Kaiba starts showing more of a heart than he had before. Compared to trying to put his little brother through the death experience, here he actually cares about Mokuba and wants to save him. And Mokuba is starting to resemble his anime counterpart a bit more. Kaiba is still very much a jerk, but he is actually getting a heart. Effectively, this arc serves as the last bit needed to rebuild it. From here on, he becomes more of an anti-hero, though he never stops being a jerk. A jerk with a heart of gold, but you gotta look deep to find that heart of gold. On the negative side, Anzu, Honda, and Bakura don't get much to do in this arc besides be cheerleaders. Bakura starts to get a little bit of development when his dark self starts to re-emerge, and that'll come into play in Battle City. Anzu gets a bit of development in furthering the love triangle between her and the two Yugis, and she does make friends with Mai. Honda gets to rescue Mokuba, so once again he doesn't get to do much, he's just kinda there. Mai gets a little bit of character development, going from a shallow woman to realizing that Yugi and Jinochi aren't fighting for superficial things like she is, and that causes her to grow as a person. But I saved the best character for last. Pegasus is a great villain. At first he appears childish with his reading of children's comic books and love of cartoons, but when we learn of his tragedy, the loss of Cynthia, that becomes easier to understand. Becoming an adult is harsh and cruel, and Pegasus lost the one that was going to be with him all his life. So essentially he buried himself in childhood interests because it's a much more simpler time. We actually see his deck be filled with cartoon characters, essentially making him very lighthearted. But when Yugi starts to fight back and do damage, Pegasus' monsters become darker and more grotesque. Essentially, Yugi destroyed his perfect image of childhood, and now Pegasus is going to make him suffer for that. Pegasus was motivated by a desire to see his beloved again, and he didn't care what methods he had to resort to do it. So Pegasus is a tragic villain, but a villain nonetheless. Takahashi would reveal that after his demise at the hands of Dark Bakura, Pegasus would be reunited with Cynthia in death. Something of a happy ending, I suppose. Our heroes have accomplished their goals, but their journey has only just begun, and that is all for this video. Join me next time with Yu-Gi-Oh!, where we will be covering the brief Dungeon Dice Monsters arc, and then Battle City. See you then! Check out the links I have on the end screen to help me out. Thank you!